Imagine you are the secret daughter of a wealthy earl. You live in a grand house, but not as family. You are the ward, the mistake, the girl who doesn't quite fit. And when your father dies, you don't inherit a fortune. You inherit a life of servitude. Overnight, you go from the earl's daughter to the unpaid help, at the mercy of a cruel stepmother who despises your very existence. Now, imagine stealing one night of freedom. You slip into a silver gown that isn't yours and attend a masquerade ball where no one knows your name. For a few hours, you aren't a servant. You are a princess. You dance with the most eligible bachelor in London, and he looks at you like you are the only person in the room. But you know the fairy tale has an expiration date. You flee into the night, leaving him with nothing but a glove. You go back to scrubbing floors, while he searches London for a mystery woman who technically doesn't exist. What happens when the prince finds you years later, but he doesn't recognize you? What happens when he falls in love with the housemaid, not realizing she is the princess he's been searching for? Welcome to the story of Sophie and Benedict. Hey readers! Busy life making it hard to finish books? I've got you covered. Before we start, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Let's dive into books in minutes. Today, we are diving deep into An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn. Published in 2001, this is the third book in the Bridgerton series. While the first two books gave us the romance of the ballroom, this book takes us downstairs, into the servants' quarters. It is an explicit retelling of the Cinderella story, but Julia Quinn adds a layer of Regency realism that complicates the fairy tale. It explores the rigid class structure of 19th century England. It asks a difficult question. Can a nobleman marry a servant without destroying his family's reputation? This isn't just about love, it's about the courage to break the rules of society. Part 1: The Bastard Daughter. Our story starts with Sophie Beckett. Sophie is the illegitimate daughter of the Earl of Penwood. Unlike many illegitimate children who were sent away, Sophie was raised in her father's house. However, the Earl was never a loving father. He was distant and cold, treating her more like an obligation than a daughter. When the Earl marries a woman named Araminta, things get worse. Araminta brings her two daughters, Rosamund and Posy. Araminta immediately senses that Sophie is a threat and treats her with disdain. When the Earl dies suddenly, the situation becomes a nightmare. His will contains a specific clause: Araminta receives a much larger allowance if she keeps Sophie in the house until Sophie turns 20. To keep the money but hide the shame, Araminta forces Sophie to become the housemaid. Sophie spends years being abused and overworked in her own father's home. Part 2: The Masquerade Ball. Fast forward to 1815. The Bridgertons are throwing a masquerade ball. Sophie, now 20, watches her stepfamily prepare. She yearns to go, not to find a husband, but just to experience one night of joy. With the help of the housekeepers, she repurposes her grandmother's old clothes into a breathtaking silver gown. She dons a mask and sneaks out. At the ball, she meets Benedict Bridgerton, the artistic and sensitive second brother. The attraction is instant. Benedict is captivated by this lady in silver. He feels a sense of belonging with her that he's never felt before. They share a dreamlike dance and a conversation on the terrace. He asks her to remove her mask, but she refuses. She knows that if he sees Sophie the maid, the illusion will shatter. At midnight, the clock strikes. Sophie panics and runs. In the chaos of her escape, she leaves behind not a glass slipper, but a single, embroidered glove. Part 3: The Fall and the Rescue. 2 years pass. Benedict has refused to marry, still holding on to that glove, obsessed with the memory of the woman in silver. Meanwhile, Sophie's life has fallen apart. The Cinderella moment has a dark aftermath. Araminta discovers Sophie's hidden shoes and the mask. Realizing Sophie went to the ball, she kicks her out onto the street without a penny. Sophie has spent 2 years struggling to survive, working various low-paying jobs. We find her now working as a maid for a family called the Cavenders. It is a miserable situation. The son of the house and his friends are predatory. It is a dangerous environment. During a party, the son of the house, Philip Cavender, tries to assault her. Sophie fights him off and flees into the rainy night. She is walking alone on a dark road when she is surrounded by drunk men. Benedict Bridgerton rides up and rescues her. He sees a terrified servant girl in wet clothes. He does not recognize her. To him, the lady in silver was a princess, this is just a maid. However, he is a gentleman. Seeing she is sick with a fever, he decides to take her to his private country home, My Cottage, to recover, rather than leaving her at a hospital. Part 4, My Cottage and the Proposition. At the cottage, a beautiful domestic intimacy develops. Benedict catches a cold, and Sophie nurses him back to health. They talk for hours. Benedict begins to fall for Sophie's wit, her intelligence, and her kindness. He sketches her constantly. But the class divide is a wall between them. Benedict wants her, but he cannot marry a servant. So, he makes the offer. He asks Sophie to be his mistress. He promises to care for her, house her, and protect her. Sophie is heartbroken. She refuses. She explains, without revealing her parentage, that she is a bastard. She knows the pain of growing up without a father's name. She vows she will never inflict that life on a child of her own. She would rather be poor and respectable than a wealthy mistress. Benedict is frustrated but respects her no. When they return to London, he arranges for her to work at Bridgerton House as a maid for his mother, Violet. Part 5, London and Blind Man's Bluff. Sophie becomes a favorite of the Bridgerton staff and Violet. Violet, being the wise matriarch, senses that her son is in love with this maid. The turning point happens during a game of blind man's bluff with the younger Bridgerton children, Hyacinth and Gregory. Sophie is wearing a blindfold. Benedict walks into the room. Seeing her with her eyes covered, just like she was masked at the ball, triggers his memory. He focuses on the shape of her face and her mouth. The realization hits him like a physical blow. Sophie is the lady in silver. He drags her to his study. He is furious, feeling tricked. He accuses her of lying to him. Sophie defends herself, saying she never lied, he just never truly saw her. The argument turns into passion. They finally give in to their feelings and sleep together on the sofa in his study. Part 6, The Jail and the Will. Despite their intimacy, the issue of marriage is still unresolved. Sophie, fearing scandal for Benedict, decides she must leave. She runs away again. But fate is cruel. She runs straight into Araminta in London. Araminta, spiteful as ever, accuses Sophie of stealing a shoe clip. Sophie is arrested and thrown into a horrific jail cell. Benedict discovers she is gone and frantically searches for her. He finds out she has been arrested and rushes to the jail, bringing his mother Violet and a magistrate. Part 7, The Reveal. In the magistrate's office, Araminta insists Sophie is a thief. Benedict declares that it doesn't matter, he is going to marry Sophie right then and there to protect her. But they need to clear her name. Posy, the timid stepsister, steps forward. In a moment of incredible bravery, Posy announces that she stole the shoe clip, not Sophie, just to silence her mother. Then, Posy reveals the biggest secret of all. She tells everyone that Araminta has been hiding the Earl's true will. Posy runs to the Penwood house and retrieves the will from its hiding spot, inside a hollowed-out lesson book in the schoolroom. The will reveals that the Earl left Sophie a massive dowry, making her a wealthy heiress. Part 8, The Blackmail. Araminta is terrified. Stealing a dowry is a serious crime that could land her in prison. This is where Violet Bridgerton, the matriarch, steps in and absolutely steals the show. She realizes that while the money is great, it doesn't solve the social problem. Sophie is still, in the eyes of the ton, an illegitimate child and a servant. If Benedict marries her, the scandal will follow them forever. So, Violet creates a blackmail scheme that is pure genius. Violet offers Araminta a deal. She tells Araminta, we won't press charges for the theft. You won't go to jail. However, in exchange for her freedom, Araminta must do one thing: she must lie to all of London. Violet forces Araminta to claim that Sophie is not an illegitimate nobody, but rather a distant cousin of the Earl of Penwood on her mother's side. The story they concoct is that Sophie was orphaned and left in Araminta's care as her ward, and that they had a misunderstanding which led to Sophie running away. Why does this work? Because it gives Sophie a legitimate bloodline. By claiming she is a distant relation of the Earl, she becomes gentry. She becomes marriageable. And because the lie comes from Araminta, the very woman who hated her, society will believe it. After all, why would a countess claim a servant as family unless it were true? Part 9: The Happy Ending. With the lie firmly in place, Benedict and Sophie are free to marry. The Tun accepts Sophie as the long-lost ward of the Penwoods. But the sweetest part of the ending isn't the wedding, it's the family they build. Sophie, remembering her own loneliness, refuses to leave Posy behind. She invites Posy, the sister who saved her life, to live with them. Posy finally escapes her mother's abuse and blossoms in the Bridgerton household, eventually finding her own happy ending in a future story. Benedict and Sophie move out to the country, away from the strict eyes of London, where they can live authentically. Benedict continues his art, with his lady in silver as his permanent muse. And yes, they keep the gloves. Key takeaways. This book is packed with deeper meaning. First, identity versus status. Benedict's journey is about learning to see past the uniform. He fell for the same woman twice, once as a princess, once as a maid. The story argues that your soul remains the same, no matter what clothes you are wearing. Second, the cycle of trauma. Sophie's refusal to be a mistress is the most important part of her character. She breaks the cycle. Her father made a mistake that caused her pain. She refuses to repeat that mistake, even for love. Her integrity is her true nobility. Third, the power of truth. The climax isn't solved by a sword fight, but by the truth. Posy, a character who was bullied and silenced her whole life, becomes the hero by simply speaking up. It's a beautiful reminder that courage comes in many forms. So, what did you think? Did the blind man's bluff reveal satisfy you? And honestly, isn't Posy the unsung hero of the entire series? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you took away from it. And if there's a book you'd like me to cover next, drop that below as well. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.